Sister asked a question, why is pork haram in Islam? Today science tells us that one of the most filthiest animal on the face of the earth is the pig. Wherever you find dirt and filth, you'll find the pig there. It enjoys seeing its mate have sex with his friend. In the Western countries, we have dance parties. After dance parties, we are swapping of wives. You sleep with my wife, I sleep with your wife. And there is a scientific thing that you eat pig and you behave like pig.
Before the beginning of my talk, I always quote a verse of the Quran from Surah Taha, chapter number 20, verse number 25 and 28, which says, Rabbi shrah li sadri. In my dream, I could have dreamt of becoming the best surgeon in the world. But I couldn't have dreamt of speaking in front of 25 people. Because I was a stammerer. Now coming in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, maybe about 10-15 years back when I got involved in the field of dawah, when I started doing dawah, stammering wasn't there. When I spoke with Christian missionaries, stammering used to vanish. I never thought of becoming a speaker. My colleague was cold feet, I came, it clicked, and now I'm on the stage. And now by Allah's grace, I give lectures to tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people. The largest gathering is 1 million people live, alhamdulillah.
About the water cycle. How the water evaporates from the ocean. First described by Sir Bernard Pallisy in the year 1580. The Quran too describes the water cycle in great detail 1400 years ago. The Quran says the water evaporates from the ocean and the water cycle is completed. The Quran speaks about the water cycle in great detail in several places.
And in none of those verses, he ever mentions evaporation. He has just dazzled people with his memory of all the numbers of the surah. Talking about the fact that there is evaporation that was never discovered. There is no mention of evaporation in any of the phrases, in any of the ayah, in any surah.
In Surah Az-Zumur, chapter number 39, verse number 21. In Surah Rum, chapter number 30, verse number 24. In Surah Mu'minun, chapter number 23, verse number 18. In Surah Hijr, chapter number 15, verse number 22. In Surah Nur, chapter number 24, verse number 43. In Surah Araf, chapter number 7, verse number 57. In Surah Rad, chapter number 13, verse number 17. In Surah Furqan, chapter number 25, verse number 48 and 49. In Surah Fatir, chapter 35, verse number 9. In Surah Yasin, chapter number 36, verse number 34. In Surah Jasha, chapter number 45, verse number 5. In Surah Qaf, chapter number 50, verse number 8 and 9. In Surah Waqia, chapter number 56, verse number 68 to 70. In Surah Mulk, chapter 67, verse number 30. In Surah Tariq, chapter number 86, verse number 11.
This is the question that my memory is phenomenal through the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People ask me, Brother Zakir, what is the technique? I tell that is the third and the least important. Number one is faith in Allah.
Swami Vivecananda was a famous Hindu expert and scholar who came over and wowed Britain in his tours, and also in America, in Chicago. A quite extraordinary man, incredible memory he had, and he seemed to be one of these people that could dip into all sorts of things and memorize things so quickly. I wish I could do that.
The husband is the head of the wife as Christ is the head of the church. That's actually to protect the woman from being abused by other men. So it's not that men are over women, it's that a man lovingly, humbly, sacrificially loves his wife, leads his wife like Christ does the church. We're talking Ephesians 5. And we're talking Colossians 3. We're talking 1 Corinthians 11. We're talking 1 Peter 3. It's all over the place. Even Esther says it.
Dr. Zakir Naik, congratulations and best of luck for starting Peace TV. I request all the audience to give him a big clap.
I, being a medical doctor, inventing the vitamin C.
You don't invent vitamin C.
Then he, after urinates, there are droplets of the urine remaining in the prepuce, in the foreskin. There are various lists of diseases which are prevented. That's the reason today in America, more than 50% of the boys, after they're born, they're circumcised.
It is not the reason why they took it up. It was for a whole other reason. They may talk about it somewhere along down the line, but it is not the reason in their own consciousness. You left your practice in the 1980s. This was all the case, and just as known.
Illogical. And the person who propounded this theory that homosexuality is genetic, he himself was an homosexual.
He was not. Dr. Dean Hammer was not. Marshall Kirk was. He is the person who invented the concept that we have in much of the world, that it's natural, normal, the same as for other people, and that to be against them is the same thing as being a racist or something. And he wrote a book called After the Bomb. He is not a scientist, he is a psychologist.
The Quran mentions 1400 years ago in Surah Az-Zumar, chapter number 39, verse number 5, overlaps the night unto the day and overlaps the day unto the night. The word kawara is used, how you coil a turban unto your head. This overlapping and coiling of the night unto the day and the day unto the night is only possible if the shape of the earth was spherical. Who could have mentioned in the Quran 1400 years ago?
Eratosthenes proved that the earth was round and accurately measured its circumference.
That previously we thought the moon has its own light. Recently we have come to know in science, recently means 100 years back, 200 years back, we have come to know that the light of the moon is not its own light but a reflected light. In Surah Furqan, chapter number 25, verse number 61, a lamp, a sun having its own light and moon having reflected light or borrowed light. Who could have mentioned in the Quran 1400 years ago that the light of the moon is not its own light but reflected light, which we have come to know recently?
Anaxagoras, the first man to realize that the moon was lit by reflected sunlight.
I have a friend, and on our endless debates, when I posed her with the question of what the Quran says in terms of the existence of the universe and the world and how it states many facts, she turns around and she says, well, that knowledge was not just for the Quran, it actually existed before the Quran. There's scriptures, there is books before the Quran was even written, detailing information about the universe. So it's not just this knowledge that is superior to the Quran. What do I say back to that? Is she lying?
I do agree that certain things were present in time before the Quran, with the sun rotating. There are certain things which were there in the Greek history and the philosophical history. But for example, when the Quran speaks about the spherical shape of the earth, these Greeks, they believed that the earth was spherical, but no one believed in them.
The evolution of Homo Sapiens, you have Charles Darwin in science giving an explanation that it's because of the process of natural selection that the human beings have evolved.
Very important question. No lecture of mine on this topic of Quran modern science is complete without this question. I've given this talk in various places, in Canada, in USA, in UK, in Saudi, Charles Darwin, on an island by the name of Kelethropis.
He went off to the Gallapagos Islands.
He went on an island by the name of Kelethropis, and there he saw birds pecking at niches.
They do not peck at niches. There is no such thing. An animal lives in a niche. For example, a fish lives in the water as its niche.
Pecking in niches. Depending upon the ecological niches they pecked, the beaks kept on becoming long and short.
There were many more differences than that.
The beak became short and long. There were 4 homonites. Science tells us today there's 4 homonites.
Now, I think the 4 that you were looking for are Australopithecus, Homo Habilis, Homo erectus, and Homo Sapian.
First is Lucy, along with its guide, the Australopithecus, which died about 3.5 million years, the Ice Age.
The Australopithecus is not supposed to have lived in an Ice Age. He's supposed to have lived in Ethiopia.
Then next came the Homo Sapiens, who died about 500,000 years ago. Then came the Neanderthal man, who died 100 to 40,000 years ago. Then came the 4th stage, the Cro-Magnon. There is no link at all between these stages.
Well, actually, there is a link between some of them because they're actually the same thing, mankind.
According to Francis Crick,
his name is Francis Crick.
According to Francis Crick, who's authority in this field, he said it is unimaginable. Again, if you do that ratio, the probability of one DNA. Hope that answers the question.